in Secular Society series. This is part 4 we've done this. We just decided to keep going with it because of the responses we're getting, the positive feedback we're getting. So we have online some new questions. We'll start with some of the online ones, and then if you just want to ask any questions of your own, just put your hands up, right? So we've got Father Athanasios, our parish priest, and we have the privilege, I suppose, Deacon Crucia from Brisbane. He's come down for a bit, and if you've come to our talks before, you would have met Father Crucia, and it's always a pleasure. He's an old friend of ours, and it's always a pleasure to have him. So, is there anything you just want to say before we get started? I'm just giving it to you.
I think these discussions are very important, and thank you very much to all those who have submitted questions. Just wanted to put a disclaimer that I saw a lot of those questions. They're very difficult, and they're very difficult to answer. And we will try our best, but if there's anything, if we find a question that might be a bit difficult for us to understand, we might throw it back to you guys to see what you think about that question. So be ready.
No, we got asked like over 50 questions, 50 to 80 questions, and I could only narrow it down to like 13. And these are really good questions, I think. Anyway, so the first one I want to ask is like maybe something personal for the fathers, but they're asking prayers that have helped you in a difficult situation.
Okay. I usually find that the Jesus prayer helps me a lot. And the reason is that as we get older, life gets a bit more complicated. Being a priest, being a spiritual father, being a husband, a father myself, raising a teenager in our society, sometimes life does get a bit stressful. And I find that during those difficult moments, I find that the Jesus prayer helps me a lot. And when I say the Jesus prayer, it's not, and I say this to all the spiritual children that I see, and I always remind them that the Jesus prayer is meant to be done in a place at a time where you can just sit down and focus on the words of the prayer. Okay, we've got the Koboshinya. I see a lot of you are wearing prayer robes, and the prayer robes are there to be used. They're not there just to, they're not there for decoration. The prayer robes are there to be used. So the Jesus prayer. Does anyone know what the Jesus prayer is? Anyone that doesn't know what the Jesus prayer is? So the Jesus prayer are the words, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, the sinner. Kyrie Isu Christe eleison me. And it's important that we use the Jesus prayer at any time during the day. You can be anywhere. You could be at work, you could be at home, you could be at church, you could even be in the toilet. Anywhere, because God is present everywhere. And I say the toilet because sometimes we feel that there are certain places we can't use to pray. No, we can pray anywhere we are, especially when we're at a moment of temptation. So when you feel tempted, when you feel that you're ready to fall into a temptation, into a sin, it's important that at that time you just stop and just say the Jesus prayer. For me personally, I find that the Jesus prayer relaxes me a lot. I might get like some anxiety because I do have anxiety, and I find that at those moments where I feel that a panic attack is coming or I feel very anxious, I just stop, take a few deep breaths, and start saying the Jesus prayer. I find that It's horrific for me personally. Yeah, just say it over and over again and try to focus on the words. Try not to imagine anything, no pictures, nothing. The fathers say, just focus on the words. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. And just focus on the words. Yeah. Father?
The Jesus prayer is probably one of the biggest prayers in our faith, because they say, the church fathers say that 1,000 read prayers or 10,000 words of read prayers can't replace these small little words. But also some people, if they're having a hard time, can't really focus to pray. So Dion wanted me to start with a story. So a story came to mind. A friend that I met when I went to Greece, he went through a whole lot of big issues in Greece, and he was very connected with St. George, with the Saint George. And he struggled to pray because his mind was so filled up with other things, and a lot of bad things happened to him, and he also did a lot of bad things. And one day he found himself in the church, and he was in front of the icon of St. George on the stand, and very gently he started to kick the icon, kick the stand, and he was saying, why is this happening? You didn't help me with what he needed. As soon as he left the church, that issue resolved itself instantly. So sometimes if we can't pray, not to be discouraged, we can always just ask, and God knows our heart regardless of what words we use. Sometimes we don't even need to speak, just the pain that we feel is enough for our prayers to be answered. So if you can't pray, don't be disheartened, because God is still listening to your prayers. And if he hasn't answered them then, there might be a reason, and just to be patient, and eventually God will come through. There's no way that he won't.
So the second question, something we get a bit, I guess, that said, I have a sin, but I'm afraid to confess it. So that one, I think it's good if you have one sin to confess, say I have a sin, but I'm afraid to confess it. So they're doing well. Unless they said, what can I do about this?
Look, we all have sins. No one is sinless except God. And the thing with sin is that the devil plays us in two ways. Before we commit the sin, he says to us, look, it's a small sin. God won't mind. You're human. Just do it and God will forgive you. And that's how we fall into sin most of the times, right? But then when we fall into sin, the devil says to us, you did the same thing again. What's the use of going to confession? How are you going to look at your spiritual father and say to them the same thing again? So the devil tries to play us both ways by showing to us that the sin is not that big. And then when we commit the sin, the devil tries to say to us that, what's the use? You're a lost cause. How are you going to go and say the same thing again? And that is how we see a lot of our people not going to confession for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. And you can see the battle that's happening inside of them in their eyes. Because when they come to church, if you're a spiritual father, you can see that they're not looking at you properly like they used to see you before. They look a bit embarrassed. But we need to understand that there is someone that knows what we've done in life, right? And that is God. God knows what we've done, so we can't hide it from God. And God is all loving and merciful. So, and when we go to confession, the spiritual fathers don't say anything. Like, we just sit there for hours and we hear the same things all over again. Occasionally we hear some big things. But most of the times it's the same things, and I try to remind my spiritual children, I try to remind them that we're all together in it. We've all got passions, weaknesses, and we're there to help each other. So don't listen to the voice from the evil one which says to you, what's the use of going to confession if you're going to say the same thing again? And if it's something that you feel really embarrassed about, it's a perfect opportunity to go to confession. because you need to get rid of that stain of sin. The more you ignore that sin, it grows and grows and grows, and you start committing other sins. And then, eventually you go to confession and you're going to have like pages to be read. But even if you have pages, so be it. The thing about sin is that the more you allow it to stay in your soul, the more it starts taking roots in your soul, your character. It starts altering yourself. So I would recommend that don't feel embarrassed. The priest won't say anything to you. Just go to confession, and I always recommend to those people that go to confession for the first time, write down the sins that burden you most first. So when you enter the confessional, you get rid of those big things first, and then you'll feel that the burden has left you, and then you can do an honest confession. But please, one thing, when you go to confession, don't hide anything. Don't listen to the devil that will say to you, hide that thing. The priest might react. Don't hide anything. Just be honest about it, because at the end of the day, God knows what we have done. What's the use of going to confession if already God knows that we've committed that sin? Just say it, get rid of it, and move on, progress spiritually. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very good response. Very difficult. It's a very difficult thing, and I understand that, because first and foremost, I speak for myself. It was very hard to start confessing and obviously face yourself when you've got a few big things to say or get off your chest, and I'll speak just from my own experience and speak real, because the first few times, like some things came out, not everything came out, because I guess I wasn't ready to face myself in that stage, and this can be part of the process too. So also, don't hide anything, but don't feel pressured to the point where it gives you anxiety. Okay, acknowledge that you've done the wrong thing, I did the wrong thing, and slowly in your own time, try your best to be able to say it. But when you say it as well, it's not just we go to confession and we confess and whatever. We have to really want to change, and I only understood this a lot later. Once we confess, we need to actually be ready to go on that straight and narrow path, not to return back. Yes, we'll fall, we're human, we make mistakes, I make a lot of mistakes, but we need to be ready to move forward, Some people might be scared to say it because maybe they know they're going to do it again. And they'll say, I won't say it now because I'm going to do it another 15, 20 times, and then I'll say it once it's out of my system. I understand this train of thought. This is a train of thought that I have, that's why I'm speaking about it now. So really, before we go to confession, we need to, whatever we're going to get off our chest, we really, really need to not want to do it again and get ready to follow the straight path. We can't be afraid of that or let anxiety stop us. We need to really want to change. And this is really the only way you can let off those big sins, because it's not just a matter of just saying them and leaving and then you do them again. You need to really want to change, because if you don't want to change, what's the point? You go, you confess your sins, but you're not going to get anywhere. You know what I mean? You need to really want to change yourself. And it can be hard at the start to understand that, but slowly, if you take the right steps with prayer and with everything else, you can get it. And you need to have someone that you trust if you speak to them. If you don't trust your confessor and you feel embarrassed or you feel uncomfortable, you don't see them as if you don't see it like it's like God in front of you like a father, then it's going to be very difficult for you guys, Just imagine someone's sick, someone's got cancer, someone's about to die, or your child's sick, they're going to die. I'm taking it to that extreme. And you say, oh, please God, you beg God with all your heart, because you feel that love, you feel that trust that He'll help to make your child or that person sick better in your life. This is what you have to try and feel for your spiritual father. Because this is a person that connects you with God, and then you can unload all the baggage. If you don't feel that, it's going to be very hard to unload those embarrassing things. And we all have embarrassing things. Every single person. I don't know if there's ever one person that I've met that doesn't have something big to say. But for God, it's all the same. He doesn't care. Like the thief on the cross, he was the first person to enter into paradise. And I don't think we're any worse than him, so we have to,
And God is a loving God. He's not a punisher. He just wants us to embrace Him. Like we read the parable of the prodigal son, and for those that don't know about it, it's a story of forgiveness and acceptance and God's love. The father forgave his son. Like the guy took half of his inheritance and went and spent his money living in sin, and then he remembered that he has a father that loves him, and he just returned back, and the father didn't even wait for him to come here. Sometimes as parents, you have your own families, and as fathers, there's this stereotype that the father has to be the strong, type that, no, you need to humble yourself in front of me and all that. No, God didn't do anything of that. The father of the parable, when he saw his son approaching, the father ran to the son, and that's God. Through the sacrament of confession, all we need to do is accept that we've fallen and to ask for forgiveness, and God will embrace us, and He will change your lives completely. I promise you. I've seen some people that before they were violent, they were doing all these sorts of stuff, and they repented, went to confession regularly, lived the sacraments of the sacramental life of the church, and now they're like great role models for our church community. So don't listen to that inner voice that says to you, oh, you don't have to go to confession, oh, you don't have to go to church, you don't need to do this, you don't need to go to choir, don't listen to that voice. And it's really encouraging to see all of you coming to our youth fellowship, but most importantly, what I enjoy as a priest, as a spiritual father, is that I can see many of you coming to confession. And that is for me, because I'll be honest with you, when I came to Cogra and came to my first Koi fellowship gathering, I'm like, oh, okay, what's happening? What's going to happen here now? Because, you see a lot of young people, and a lot of them, didn't come to church often, and you're like, well, all right, what do I do? But it's encouraging for me. It's showing that the fellowship is growing spiritually when I see you coming to church, and most importantly to confession. And you're confessing honestly. Okay, and I'm seeing the change happening inside all of you. And I find that spiritually rewarding, because I can see that all of you are genuinely making an effort to get closer to God. So give us a try, guys. Don't be embarrassed. Ask to speak to your local parish priest. Go to confession and just empty your hearts, not to us. You're not emptying your hearts to us. You're emptying your hearts to God. And through that process, through that humbling experience, you will find God's grace enter your lives. And I'm telling you, you're going to start feeling different. I promise you. And it's not just with the first confession, as Father said. You have to keep it going. Keep fighting, even if you fall. Don't listen to the devil. Keep going to confession, the liturgies, the fellowships, Holy Communion, praying, getting closer to God. It's going to change your lives completely, I promise you.
So how to find a spiritual father best for me? I think we've answered this like 100 times, but if you want to say anything else about it, Father Chris, Reverend Andrew. So they say best for me. And I think maybe people struggle with the actual process. Like, well, what do? You go to this church, you speak to this father, you go to another church, you have coffee with them. Maybe we can get into the actual process of finding this spiritual father. Anyway, whatever you're thinking.
Yeah, it's a hard one, eh? Yeah, it's very hard because I had a really few experiences, and I think I've said my story as well on how I found my spiritual father. I'll say it quickly again, but when I started, I felt like first few times in confession, doesn't mean confession doesn't work, and I'm not having a dig at any priests that watch this. I felt like, for me, my personal opinion, it was very transactional, and I didn't feel that this person could tell me what God wanted from me. I know it's very specific, but for me, the way things went in my life, I needed to know exactly what God wanted for me, or else I couldn't move forward in my life. It's simple as that. I said, I can't keep doing this wishy-washy stuff. I need someone to tell me what God wants. And I didn't feel that I was getting that wherever I was going. So I said to myself, I'm just going to confess to someone. I had someone that was a very nice person that I'll confess to. And hopefully I'll find the right person. And I said, I'm just going to stay home. I'm going to pray. And that's what I did. Stayed home for months, and I prayed and I fasted, and I did all these sort of crazy things. And my mum was freaking out. She was like, my son's lost his mind. And one day I was super exhausted, and I was laying on my bed, and I had a photo of the monastery of Simonoptera, which is in Mount Athos. And I said, like I said about that prayer before, I wasn't even praying, and I said, God, can you please, I wish you could send me someone from these balconies. Because I have a fear of flying, so I couldn't fly to Greece either. I couldn't get on a plane, so I was screwed pretty much. And I sort of said, can you send me someone from these balconies? And a few weeks later, I was with a friend, and we went and met a nun who had another girl with her that knew a monk from Perth. And she said, the first thing the nun said to me, she's a very spiritual woman also, she said, do you have a spiritual father? I said, look, I have someone I confess to, but no one to tell me what God wants from me in my life. And she sort of looked at me in an interesting way, and she said, I know someone. The other girl, she was from Brisbane, and she said, I'm going to call him right now, and you speak to him. I spoke to him. As soon as I heard his voice, it was like, I don't know how to explain it in words, but it was like like the heart monitors, how they go up in the hospitals. It was dead before, and it's like the connection started. This is what came in my mind. I know it might be hard to explain, it might be hard to believe, whatever, this is what happened about. And a week later, I found that he was from Simonoptera. He was a monk there for 14 years. And ever since that day, he led me to what I am today. So he was able to tell me what God wanted in my life, and up until this day, I stand by that. I ask, he tells me, and I know exactly what to do in my life, and I don't have any second question. But it took a long time to find this, and look, I don't know how easy it is for everyone else. I'm just being real. This is what I wanted in my life, and thank God blessed me with this, or else I wouldn't have been able to move forward in life. But everyone else, I guess, looks for different things. But for me, the most important thing was to definitely know what God wanted in my life. I didn't want to pass through this life doing something that was a waste of time. When it came time for me to die, when it comes time for me to die, I want to look back and say, yes, I did everything to the best of my ability that God wanted me to do. I didn't do what I wanted to do. So this was my thought process before I find. So you guys have to know what you want first before you go looking for a spiritual father. And you can look around, I guess, like you can see who fits you. But once you find someone, you need to stick with them. and you need to follow through with it. But it's a very personal choice, I guess, and you need to feel at peace with it. So, yeah.
Look, I think when you look for a spiritual father, obviously you'll need to find someone that you can feel comfortable to open your heart to. Because as Father said, sometimes confession can be a bit like, as you said, the word transaction.
Yeah.
Like, tell me your sins, alright, you're forgiven, see you later. But that can work with some people, especially the ones who are regulars. But, you know, for someone who's going to confession for the first time, or someone who has issues to discuss, on a practical side of things, you can easily tell the priest that, look, I want to see you for confession, but there are a few. Sorry,
all good.
Get out, David. But it's obviously you need to explain to the priest that, look, Father, I need to have some time to discuss with you, because if you, for example, I've said this before, you know, if it's the week before Holy Week, where the priest will have 40 people waiting to see him that day, it's hard for him to say to you, yeah, I've got an hour free to sit down with you and talk. So you need to explain to the priest that, Father, I need some time to spend some time with you. I need to discuss a few things. And the priest will obviously say, look, don't come on the day where there are other people waiting. I'll see you on another day, another time, where we can sit down and have a chat. But your spiritual father needs to be your friend, not someone that you are scared of. See, I grew up, my age, we grew up thinking that the priest needs to be someone who's strict, someone who, you know, won't smile, just go in there. What are your sins, my child? You confess your sins trembling, and you receive the absolution, and you're on your way. The spiritual father should be your friend, someone that you can open up to. So if you go to someone that you're not comfortable opening up your soul to them, obviously there's something there. Maybe you need to have a chat with them, or search inside yourself, because most of the times the problem is not the priest. Many of the times the problem is us, because unfortunately some of us have expectations that are not logical. Like, I was speaking to someone and they were saying, I need to go to Mount Athos to confess. And I said to them, why do you need to go to Mount Athos? Well, you've got many spiritual fathers here to confess. Because I need to go to see someone who's a clairvoyant spiritual father, who will know my name, who will know my sins. And I go to him, mate, I go, yeah. I go to him, okay, you're not looking to go and confess, you're looking for the easy way out, for them to say your sins so you don't have to humble yourself. The best way to seek a spiritual father is to go with a spirit of humility, to say that, to pray to God. It's important to pray to God before we go to confession, to help us to do a good confession, but to help the priest as well. Because we're human beings as well. We're tired. We've got family problems. We've got problems at work. There are times we're overworked, we're overwhelmed, and suddenly we're expected to sit down on that chair and to throw out words of wisdom as if we're like, you know, a chat GPT. You know, suddenly I've been introduced to that. That's amazing. I've never. Oh, that's cheating. That's a lot of cheating. Yeah. Yeah, done. Confession will never be replaced by anything like that. Yeah. You need to go face to face to experience that humility, to ask for forgiveness. So your spiritual father should be your friend, but at the same time, they should have that spirituality to say, yeah, okay, we're friends, but I can see some problems here. That they can be able to say to you that, look, these are the problems, I'll be able to help you to deal with them. Yeah.
And there's, just so you know the difference, there's also a difference between a confessor and a spiritual father. A confessor as well, I know it sounds weird because some of them call themselves the same, but if you go to someone, they're a confessor, you confess your sins and that's it. A spiritual father is someone that will be there, that you choose to be there throughout your life and that you talk to about certain things, and they're able to guide your life in the way according to what Christ wants from you. And this is what I'm saying, this is so important. I know, as Father said, there is priests have families that have this, that have that. It's difficult, you know. That's why it's so important to find the right person. And I say this because I care, because there's so many people that can get misguided and guided the wrong way. And man, what a waste. Like, what a waste. You know, you need someone that can guide your life and your family, or whoever, if you don't have a family, just your life towards what Christ wants. It's so important to find this person. I'll give you an example. This is a big example, and Father Athanasios will know who he is. My spiritual father, Yeron Simonopatra, he was the abbot of Simonopatra, and he's buried in a female monastery in Orthodoxy, which is, he started both the female monastery and the male monastery, which is in Athanasios. And before he got sick, he said to the nun, well, he was already sick, but before he got really sick, he said to the nuns, not one of my spiritual children will be lost, married or unmarried. Not one of them, not one of their souls will be lost. And he was already a very holy person, and he will be canonized a saint one day, I hope. He suffered for 20 years with a disease, something sort of like Alzheimer's, but it lasted a lot longer than it should have. He wasn't able to speak or move off the bed for 20 years. And this is a person that they said he had such a big connection with the Holy Spirit, where he would, to the point where he could ask God, and God would do it for him, because he gave his body as a vessel for God to work with. It might sound a bit weird, but that's how it was, you know. And he suffered himself to save all the spiritual children that he had around him. This is what it means to be a spiritual father. This is what it means when we take on that role. We give our life for the people like you that come, not me, who come to Father, or come to whoever's a spiritual father. This is what it means to be a spiritual father. And I think as priests as well, we need to reflect, are we this sort of priest? Are we ready to take the burdens and to give our life so that other people around us can be saved? You know, family and the strangers, the Orthodox, we're all family actually. All the people that come to us, you know, to the sacrament of confession. So you need to really know what you're looking for. And I just gave you that example to understand, so you guys can understand how serious it is for someone to be a spiritual father. And this is what it means. For us to carry you to heaven, that's the greatest thing ever, I think.
Okay. Is it my sinful nature that makes me love clubbing, but makes it hard for me to go to church, or is it a matter of discipline?
What was the question?
So is it? Yeah, they love. This person loves clubbing. Huh?
I'll make sure I heard it right.
Yeah, that's what I said. So is it their sinful nature that makes them love clubbing and hard to go to church, or is it a matter of discipline? So yeah.
I don't know, this is something that maybe we could ask you guys, like for those who go clubbing, like what are the feelings you experience when you go clubbing? What do you feel?
It's a good question, huh?
Because it's been... Sorry?
It's never a good experience.
Why?
I don't know why anyone would choose to do it. I understand for birthdays and things like that, but you don't enjoy yourself, you don't have a good time, people get drunk and get on drugs around you, and then what?
Yeah.
Did you have a great night?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah, dance at home.
Anyone else? Anyone else? What are the experiences you've had when you go clubbing? Yes?
I'm underage, but I think
Don't tell me you've got a fake ID card.
I think it's all about the intention though, when you're going something like if you're going to the girls, you're going to the boys, and I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
Is there anyone in the crowd who has gone from being a clubber to coming to church? Maybe wants to share about that experience. What brought you out of that and to realise that? Because you said those things which are they're true to us, I guess.
All the time, like fresh 18, 19, as you do with your friends and you think it's a fun time. Looking back on it, it just never really was. Yes, you dance and yes, you do have a bit of fun in between, but you're surrounded by people that don't have good intentions, people that go there to pick up or hook up or do drugs or fight or God knows what in between, and it's not a place I want to be in, put myself in. Does that make sense? Like, what brought me out of it is that I changed my life. I realized that I don't want to be going out with my friends just to be part of the party. I just wanted to do my own thing, and that didn't line up with what people around me wanted to do.
And that didn't take discipline, because this person asked me
It does,
discipline.
it does. It's social. It's being mature with yourself socially. Do I want to go out and smoke because my friends are smoking and drinking, or do I want to focus on what I want and fix my path to God or fix my life? Or going out and drinking is not going to fix anything.
Sorry to ask, did you have a negative experience before you came to this idea? In general, with anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about the people that haven't had a bad experience yet?
Generally in life,
Yeah,
like,
I understand.
being closer to God at certain times of your life.
Um,
Do you choose to take the right path, or do you choose to keep sinning and doing what you're doing already that's not really much?
and sorry, your name?
Pam.
Pam? She answered it better than I could have answered or any of us. You know, this is what it is. You know, and the people that are in it and they enjoy all the stuff that she named, eventually you're going to see that it's a waste. But not all people do. I know a lot of people that don't, and they continue until they're 30, 35, and by the time they're 40, they're messed up on drugs. They've got schizophrenia, can't have a normal conversation, they've got anger problems, too much cocaine, too much a lot of things, you know. It affects you, and then it affects you when you try to become spiritual after, because your brain changes after and it becomes harder. You know, I know there's a lot of people that are strong-minded and that can withstand this sort of stuff, but there's a lot of people that are not. And if you're one of those people that are not strong-minded and you do it to try and fit in, or you do it so your mates don't think you're a girl, or think you're a wuss, sorry.
It's 2023. Girl means courageous.
But it's hard, you know.
You look up
There,
and
Tony, the year before.
Can we take that out?
Further.
Chloe's going to get
You're
cancelled.
digging yourself further.
Boring, that's it. My wife's going to kill me when she sees this. But I was one of those people that I have naturally a weak mind. Like, I don't like to even take prescription medication. And I was one of those people that I had to say no for some reason. I had this feeling I had to say no to the drugs and to all that sort of stuff. But if I said yes, you probably wouldn't be looking at Father Chris. I'd probably be in mental hospital or something, because it would have affected me, you know. So I think we just have to realize when we go out, what's the intention we're going for. If we're not at that stage where we realize what's the intention. For the girls, what's the intention? For the guys, what's the intention? We know what it is. I'm not going to name it. We know what the intention is. And the only way to come above that is to have a relationship with Christ. But actually have a relationship. I can't force you to have a relationship with Him. You know, just like you can't force yourself to go out with this girl, or this girl can't force herself to like this guy. It doesn't work like that. There's either a connection or there's not. You have to search and find your love for Christ, and then these things will seem very unnecessary to you. And then you can start to find your path, as you said, you know, and that's the important thing. And I guess that happened to me. I went through a lot of things and I phased out of that stuff. And you might lose a lot of friends if they're not supportive, but so what? So what? Who cares? I went to commune someone yesterday in Calvary Hospital. She was dying, the lady. I'd missed Father's message and I was scared that she had already died, so I was having heart failure. But I made it to her, and she was speaking. She was all good, and she was going to the bathroom, and I was just looking out the window, and I was just thinking I could see the city and I could see the cars passing by, and I was thinking, this lady's going to pass away, and the whole world's just going by. No one's stopping to come and see if she's alright, besides her family. Even her family couldn't handle being there. They had to leave because I was so stressed out from being there. The whole world was just doing their thing. They was going by. No one was thinking about her. She's going to pass away. No one was praying for her. Life was just going by, and I was thinking, far out, this is going to be me. And this is why she was going to the toilet, the poor thing, and I was just having this nice little epiphany in my head. I was thinking, life's going by. This is what's going to happen to all of us. Your friends are not going to be there if they're not true friends. If they're not friends that are praying, they're not friends of Christ, they're not going to be there. You'll be dying, and life will continue. Your body will be gone. Your soul, I hope and I pray that you all go to heaven before me. But you'll be forgotten by these people. Would you rather have people that love you, that care for you, and that pray for you, and you'll have Christ that he's not one of those people that just drives past and just forgets about you and continues on with life. He's there up until the last minute, even after that, to comfort your soul. So you either want that, or you want your mates that I guarantee do not care about you at all if they don't support the path that you're trying to be on. Think about that. It's deep, it's heavy, but it's true. It is what it is, you know. We have to just accept it. We're all going to die one day, and we want to have people there that love us. So, yeah, please remember. I think there was a question.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a comment while we're on the topic. I think it's highly dependent on where you're going, who you're going with, and what you're going for. I think if we don't think with balance, then if you take that mindset, you have to remove yourself from your friends or your cousin's birthday party as well. Because there's elements that you find them in multiple scenarios. If I take something that someone very spiritual that I met told me, he said that you can be in the middle of the club and have God inside you, and you can be in church and have the devil in your heart. And I think that's an important thing to take on board. Of course, no one needs to do these things, and you should be peer pressure to people get together. But I think intent matters. I also think people, especially in Australia, when they hear the word clubbing, they think a certain type of clubbing as well, and it has to stick with their peer pressure. But I think you don't have to sacrifice your Christian values to be able to, obviously on the topic of the talk, to live in the world as well. Unless, of course, you feel like you can't hold on to those values, then maybe it is a better option for you to then retract.
I understand what you're saying. And I think I know who told you that as well, about the Christ in your heart. So we're on the same page, but we actually have to have Christ in our hearts as well. How do we do that? We have to have a prayer room. We have to have a spiritual father. And yes, there might be times maybe we have to go for our cousins or our families or a birthday or this or that. Okay, that might be a good reason to go. And if we can keep our peace, great. But we go, can we wake up in the morning? The next morning, can we go to church? Can we continue our prayer or can we pray? Do we slip up and say things that we shouldn't? Do we do things that we're going to regret? There's a whole lot of things in between of having Christ in your heart. Yes, we can go and have Christ in our heart if we're centered. But if we're giving up on our prayer rule or we're not going to church because we go somewhere, it's hard to keep Christ in our heart because we're missing the most important thing. You know, going to church with divine energy, prayer and having a relationship with God, you need both. You need to go to church as well. It's so important. I can't explain how important it is. You need to do both. And look, if you go clubbing, it's not bad. Some people go and they keep to themselves and they don't do anything bad. Look, it is what it is, you know. Some people just want to have a good time and they don't drink, they don't do drugs, they just have a good time, you know. But that's up to you guys to decide. You guys know yourself. But if you see yourself slipping, you can't pray. You can't get up to go to church on Sunday because of these things. These things become an obstacle with your relationship with Christ. And then it makes it harder to have Christ in your heart. So you have to understand that, you know. Yes, you can, but you have to also keep your spiritual side as well, you know. And if you can do that, mate, I'll kiss your feet. You're amazing, because I could never do that. It's very hard, you know. But I understand some people might have a career in music. They might be a DJ. There might be this, there might be that. I understand that, and they might do it because they love it and they enjoy it. But they always have to remember that their prayer comes first, Christ, church, and then the rest second. If someone says you've got a DJ on a Sunday and you know you're going to miss church to do that, it's up to you to make your decision. Do you want Christ, or do you want to do that? You know, it's going to come down to the point where you need to, eventually when you need to choose. I understand you can have Christ in your heart. I understand that, because I struggled with a lot of things, but it came to a point where I drove myself to such a low where I had no choice but to choose. If I didn't choose, mate, I don't know what could have happened. I could have gone really, really bad. So it's going to come to a point where we have to choose, you know. Do we want Christ or do we want this, you know? But it's up to you guys. No one can force you. It's up to you guys. No priest, nothing can force you guys. You need to want it inside you. You know, I came in my own time. I wanted it inside myself. Father is all the same, I'm sure. In your own time you came around. Evan the same, I know. Dion the same. You know, like, you need to come in your own time. And you need to really, really love Christ. It's so important. If you don't love Him, you won't be able to give up nothing.
Look, for me personally, I came to the church when I was a teenager, but I did get to experience a bit of that when, you know, you're in your late teens, you know, and some of your friends invite you to go to a club for a birthday party and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously the moment I entered into the club, you know, everything's dark. And I realized that it's meant to be dark because it's meant to dull your senses, not to know what's happening inside. It's like when you go, like someone who's addicted to gambling, and they enter into a club where there are pokies everywhere. Have you noticed that the windows, they've all got curtains, it's all dark, and every poker machine has the lights, those lights that are just drawing them to gamble. It's the same thing with the club. Everything's dark. You've got the music that's blaring, you've got the alcohol. I was fortunate enough that night to experience every bad thing that you can experience in a club. I saw people getting intoxicated, I saw people getting into a big fight, I saw people getting taking drugs and being out of it. So the moment I saw that, I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about, clubbing and everything. This is so again, it's all about how you feel when you go there. Is it going to bring you closer to God? Unfortunately not. And the church, we're not killjoys. We're not saying don't have fun. Like we had the Taverna night at the Cypress Club, and it was nice, pure fun. Everyone's just sitting down eating. You're able to converse, to have a chat, to dance, to enjoy each other's company. And that's not bad. The church is not saying that is bad. But when you go to all these clubbing, especially with women, you're scared if someone's going to spike your drink. I've heard so many stories of women having their drink spiked. You hear all these bad situations, and sometimes you wonder, it's do you really want to go into that place? Will you come out a better person if you go clubbing? So,
Evan, you got anything to say?
do you have experience of clubbing?
Yes. No, I don't. I don't know. Like when the first time I saw the question, I just saw the discipline thing. And I just thought, if you have fallen for Christ, like we say, you fall for someone head over heels in love. You know, like just think when the first time you fell in love with someone or got obsessed with someone, all you do is think about them. You wake up, boom, the thought's there. You're going to sleep, the thought of them is in your head. You can't get rid of it. Even if you want to get rid of it, maybe they left you, maybe something happened where you can't get together. No matter what you do, you can't get the thought out of them out of your head. I just think if you fall for Christ, which you can fall for him in that way, you can 100% fall in love with Christ that way. If that happens, it would take zero discipline to not go to these places. It won't even hurt. It won't hurt your mind at all, your soul. The amount of love you have for Christ will be enough alone. And I don't want to talk over the fathers. What the father said is exceptional, and even what Pam said. But I will. I just think, like, if you're asking these questions, I don't know, just if you're a man, I have a feeling that guys ask this. If you're a guy, sometimes it's hard to search yourself, to open up, even to yourself as a man. We try to guard ourselves so much, especially if you've been through certain traumatic events or something. You tend to form this rock around your heart, and you don't want to open up, not even to yourself. You don't even want to look at yourself. But it's so important. It's so important to sit down and search your soul. Like just bare yourself in front of God, you know. Be alone with God in prayer and just bare your soul open and search your soul. You know, what's this passion inside of me that keeps drawing me to these places? I'm not just talking about clubbing, it could be anywhere that's making you fall into this sin. Because if you're asking this question, I think you're passionate about it. This is something you're trying to work on, which is a good thing. You acknowledge that. But you need to search your soul and think, why am I drawn so much? And why do I want to leave? And I don't know, I just think when you fall for Christ and you're honest with yourself, you search your soul, then you'll find the answer and you'll realise, I don't want to be there. And then it will be as simple as just saying no. And and what the father said. But I don't know. I think for guys, I just can't experience from a guy's point of view. That's so important, just to be yourself. And the other thing I was thinking of is, don't think you're going to lose everything. Like you're going to stop going to clubs, or you're going to stop, going to house parties, whatever, and you will lose everything. You're going to lose your status, who you are, your character, you know. We're talking about drugs and alcohol, like these are the only problems in clubbing, which are the biggest problems, but I mean, I was involved in that scene a bit, but I didn't touch any of them, drugs or alcohol, but it was still a massive problem, because the passions are numerous in those scenes. And I'm talking about ego, your pride, the pride you give from when you're getting attention from the opposite sex, and you're going about these things in a way where you think you're a god yourself. Everyone bows to you. Everything's happening your way. You know, you're getting your way. The security lets you in. You don't have to pay. You're going in. Girls are looking at you. You're picking up whoever you want. You got this ego filling up you.
Where did you go?
I'm talking about,
Where did you go?
because we're talking about drugs and alcohol.
Who were you? I don't know you.
No, but
Sorry, I just finished the point, otherwise it looks silly. Sorry. I'm just talking about, like, we keep talking about drugs and alcohol, but there's so much more. I'm sure other people struggle with that. I don't think you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your friends and this and that. God will replace everything tenfold. I'm telling you right now, God will replace everything you had and give you more. Give you more meaningful, deep friendships. Give you a more meaningful, deep relationship with somebody. And you will experience life on a different plane. You won't have to keep feeling the emptiness inside you with this stuff. The life God is going to give you once you cut all that out will be enough to sustain you for an eternity. The friends, the relationships you form, you know. I'll just say quickly from my own story, because Father Chris is here, and Dimitri over here, and my brother Spiridon, and other friendships I've made, but mostly the boys.
Don't hide, bro. Get up.
Mostly Father Chris and him, my brother. I mean, I didn't know them before I started coming to church. I mean, I knew Dion, but not as I knew him. I mean, not as I knew him after we started going to church together. Our relationship as brothers is something else, and I can't even explain it. And Dion would know, anyone with siblings in the church would know. The relationship becomes so much deeper. But for a time I had no friends. Dion wasn't even coming to church at the beginning. It was just me. No one could understand me. No one could relate to me. I just cut off everything. I deleted the social medias, whatever, all that stuff. I stayed inside the house. For a long time I was content with Christ, with Anaya and the saints and church and my spiritual father. I was content. But then I started saying my spiritual father, I want mates. I want to share the faith with people. I want to, I did feel a bit lonely. It's okay to feel like that. And I just thought, I'm going to pray about it. I'm not going to do what I used to do and make something of it my own. I'm the God, and I'm going to make it better. I prayed to God to ask Him to make it better. I told my spiritual father, and He said, pray and you'll see, And I prayed about these things, and within a month or 2 months, I met Father Chris, when he was still a lay person, when he was still had 21-inch biceps and a fade and everything. I met Dimitri, I met Dion as he was spiritually coming into the church. He started coming to church. And from there it grew. And the friendships we shared, between the boys, it was something I never experienced before. Because we all understood each other. We didn't have to utter a word to each other to understand each other's hearts and souls. And you'll never find friendships like this outside church. I don't care what anyone tells me, because I've experienced both, and the fathers have as well. You've never experienced the relationships you form within Christ. Anyway, sorry for talking. It's just, it's a, I don't know, it's important.
This is what I mean about passing by, the window. These guys will be there for me until the day I die. This is what you need to find, This is what it is. And it might sound easy, you might think, this is ridiculous, but it's not.